Welcome to the KnifeWife podcast. I'm Suze, married to Bob Terzuola. This podcast is about couples who live, love, and work together. It has little to do with knives. So I want to thank Mimi for coming on today. I did not know Mimi. Say hello.
Hi. Hi, Suze. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Mimi.
I was calling you Mimi Wong until I got your email. And so pronounce your last name for me.
It's Trin with
Trin.
a silent H.
Okay, Trin. Okay. Anyway, so I went, oh, okay. I don't have the same last name as Bob. The reason I don't is because no one could pronounce Terzuola. So I thought, no, I'm not going to sign up for that.
I could.
Anyway, I met Mimi for the first time
In
in Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second time we were in Oregon, but we were on the coast. And I saw her husband's work on the table, and I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know anything about their knives. And Bob had said to me at the first show, you got to go look at his work. So I did, and I said, wow, they're really clean. They're really nice. I really like his design and his style, and he doesn't have them all ungapatched up, which is, they put 25,000 things on one piece, and, artists tend to do the same thing. So, and Mimi was very friendly. And then when we were in Seaside, Mimi pulled into the parking lot just after I had done this. We had pulled up, and I had parked the car, and we had a hybrid. Was it a hybrid or electric car?
It was a hybrid.
And I saw some really good friends I hadn't seen in a long time, and I hopped out of the car and talked to them for like a half hour. Didn't realize the car was still on. It was still running. And so saw Mimi came, and Princeton came, and we talked. Everybody was talking in the parking lot, and we were having a good time. And I walked, I said, well, let's go to our room. We go into the room, and I still haven't turned the car off. But I have no idea I haven't turned the car off. Okay, you call it a senior moment, call it whatever. I think I was just distracted by so excited to see some people I hadn't seen in a long time. And so then when we put our stuff in our room and we came out, and one of the showrunners, Nick, who I just love, said to me, Suze, I turned your car off for you. I said, what? He said, yeah, I turned your car off for you. It's been running for an hour. I said, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. So anyway.
Well, no one got hurt, so it's fine.
No, I wasn't, in drive at least, which I don't think you can do that. But anyway, so it was a little embarrassing. But I just really enjoyed, I didn't know much about you, and I've learned more since I was doing this podcast, but I didn't know much about you, and I didn't know much about your relationship. I know that you don't work full time in the knife business, but you do all the shows, which is right. Work. So you have another full-time job. So tell us about that and your story.
Right. Yeah. So, I've joined Prince at every Blade show since Prince Customs' inception, with the exception of the 2018 first spring show that he went to. I was caring for our newborn son.
Oh, no excuse. No excuse, Mimi.
So, but I'm his biggest fangirl. When he wins the awards, and just being there to see him, take home an award for all of his hard work and all the hours that he puts into the machine shop. I'm so proud of him.
Yes. And did he always knew he wanted to have a machine shop, or was this after school? Or I can't imagine many parents saying, oh, code great. Yeah, get a machine shop going. Most parents would say, what did I send you to college for?
Princeton has tried different things. He actually owned a bubble tea shop when he was in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tell me, what is bubble tea? I've had it. It just seems like sugar in a glass.
Yeah, so it's tapioca pearls.
Mm-hmm.
And they put it in smoothies and ice drinks. And so he owned a shop in Austin, and he was living in Houston and going to school there. So every weekend he would drive up to man the shop and then come back and go back to school. So he's actually done different things. He was a graphics designer by training, and then followed me to New York. And then we moved to Japan, actually.
Tell me
got
about
my first
that.
job in industry. And I I always wanted to be a medical science liaison. And it's a medical scientific affairs department within a pharmaceutical company where you go and talk to doctors about our upcoming medications and clinical trials, and if they have patients to help enroll into our trials.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my dream from
Yeah.
12 years ago. And
Really?
Princeton, he basically said, yeah, if you want to do this. And I said, this is a chance of a lifetime to work in Japan and do this. And so he dropped what he was doing, put his career aspirations aside 12 years ago. And I was serving as a science liaison from Japan. And it's funny because the company said, we'll give you the job and we'll help your husband find a job. They just told me that
Ah.
because when we got there, they forgot.
Oh.
Let's just say for 2 years while I worked there, Princeton was a dedicated house husband, let
Really?
alone not working for a Japanese company where, you have no rights. He had to get my signature to actually withdraw money from a bank.
I bet he loved that.
Talk about roles reversed.
Yeah.
And, after, surviving Japan and living there, it was wonderful 2 years there, and deciding to Houston. Houston's home for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And being surrounded by our family, he wanted to open a machine shop in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And he was scoping them out in 2015, but actually it got established and he started working in it in 2016. We put aside all of our savings. I thought to myself that, this guy, he put aside everything for me
Yeah.
to chase my dream. So he's never made knives before, but he whatever he makes, even he gave me gifts when we were dating, they
Mhm.
were impressive.
Really?
Not the main reason that I married him, but
Yeah. You think if
Okay.
Bob Terzuola can make a knife, Princeton can certainly make a knife. That's what he's probably thinking.
He certainly can.
And, I lived in Japan twice, but only for
Oh,
3
you
months
did?
at a time. I worked at the wood shop, woodcutters studios in Kyoto.
Wow, okay.
So
No way.
Japan is just one of my happy places. Kyoto,
Yes.
not so much the big cities. I'm not such a
Tokyo's
big
too
fan of
busy,
that.
yes.
But the train pushers blew my mind. Did you like the train pushers? I didn't like being pushed on the train.
I just got on the train before they pushed. So
Oh, okay. Anyway, well, and I was, and did you speak Japanese before you went there?
no, they provided no.
Oh, yeah. Well, nobody
I'm
provided
I'm
anything
getting
for me. Nobody talked to me for 3 months in where I worked. And I had to work from sun up to sundown. We worked in the shop. We worked from east to west.
Yeah.
And so my job was to sharpen their tools and get them whatever they wanted. And then I was supposed to be learning, wood block printing. And these guys are none of them are alive anymore. None of them. I would go back and visit. Anyway, they didn't talk to me. They didn't speak any English. I was the first woman to ever be in the shop. The women made the paper. The women were not with the men, but they were sort of forced into this. So I didn't know that we were working from east to west in the shop. So I was trying to be really helpful and really a good employee and return the tools after I sharpened them back to where
Yes.
they left them. But I was supposed to go to the west side of their table, not the east side of their table. And they'd be yelling at me in Japanese. I'd be like, I don't know what he's saying. And I'd come home and it was sort of like being in boot camp. And I was living with a lovely family who, he was a master printmaker, and I met him at Northwestern years ago. But I'd say to him, what am I doing wrong? They're yelling at me. I put the tools right back in the same order that they, I have a really a visual recall that
Yeah.
is almost a gift. It's bad because I'll remember what you wore 4 years ago at a cocktail party. I mean, it serves me no purpose at all in life, except for when I was a movie costumer. So anyway, so I'm in Japan. So I say to Philip, I said, what am I doing wrong? And so he came with me one day and then he said, oh, they're working from east to west. And we had the tea ceremony every day and whatever, but I didn't know one word of Japanese before I said, oh yeah, I'll go. And which is pretty much the story of my life. Oh yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know, the movie Lost in Translation. Did you ever see that movie with Bill Murray?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Yes. It takes a certain breed of person like people to actually go over to Japan, not actually speaking the language.
Right.
So I confuse them because I look like them, and Princeton did too, but
Yeah.
neither of us neither of us speak Japanese. So
Yeah, yeah,
living
and
in the countryside.
right. And I didn't look like them, and I was loud, and and I laughed. I showed my teeth, and I was supposed to, and it was an experience. I'd do it
I made
over
lots of eye
again.
contact, and that was no bueno. So
Yeah,
they were like,
yeah,
it's funny because in the US, that's how we build rapport. And,
yes,
yeah, asking for what you like and
mm-hmm.
talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had no communication, but at the end, I guess I did a good job sharpening their tools because as a gift, as you know, the Japanese wrap everything beautifully. And so I got
Yes.
this beautiful gift, and you don't open it in front of them. You go home and open it. You don't open it in front of them. And so I went home to my host family, and I was opening it up, and the first thing Phil said to me was, "Well, they must have liked you. They bought you the most expensive tools you can buy, so you must have done a good job."
You
And
made some good impression.
yes,
Yes.
right. And then 10 years
That's
later,
awesome.
yeah, they asked me back again, and of course there was not, I didn't learn Japanese. I didn't think I was going back. I mean, I thought I might be back as a tourist, but and I met another very famous engraver. But Bob, you met him, Takachi.
Takashi.
We have one of his engravings hanging over our fireplace of the Flatiron Building. He's anyway, but I love Japan. I love the food. If you say to me, what do you want to go eat? I saw you were eating sushi on Mother's Day, right?
Yeah. So I'm always craving
Yes,
the good
yes,
Japanese food.
me too. And I love, they told me in Japan that dumplings you should be able to read a newspaper through them. So when we go to a restaurant and they have gyoza, I ask, is it fried or is it steamed? If they say fried, I'm like, no, no, thank you. And then if it's
Yeah.
steamed, when it comes out, I'm sort of a dumpling snob. I go like, can't read the newspaper through these. They're pretty thick. And my former daughter-in-law
Right.
taught me how to make dumplings, and hers were very thick. Also, she did make them thin, but the Japanese do them so well.
Mhm.
So we'll have to
I
find
know.
somewhere at Blade to go for Japanese food.
I would love to.
Yes, because
That'd be awesome. I'm
yeah.
always helping Princeton and his knife maker friends find places to eat
Oh yeah, that's our job.
after the show.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah, you're the
So,
tour director. Oh yeah, I do it all the time. And how many for dinner? Well, it was 6. Now I'm calling them up. Could we squeeze in 2 more, please? And it gets up to
right.
Bob. Bob, you don't like big.
No, generally not.
What do you call them when you have 12 people at a table?
What do I call them?
Yeah, you don't remember?
No, I don't.
The Last Supper.
Oh, the Last
I
Supper.
don't want to sit in the middle of the Last
Yeah.
Supper, he said, where I can't hear people at one end or hear people at the other end.
I'm kind of hard of hearing, and it's difficult for me. I got to sit like kind of in the middle, and then I get it from both directions.
Yeah. And for me, the more people, the better. So I love it. I love it. So when you said that you were a medical affairs, and what came to mind was you hooking people up in the medical
I'm the
field.
connector.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'm the connector. I really like talking about science and geeking out about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I meet a doctor who cares for these patients, and I'm in rare disease, so it may be 1 in a million patients that have this genetic disability or
Mm-hmm.
disease.
Mm-hmm.
And then meeting that doctor, and they're like, "Hey, you have a promising therapeutic for my patients," connecting them to our
Yeah.
clinical trial, the local clinical trial, that they can get involved. So that's what gets me up every day. Aside
Okay.
from being his trusted show wife and helping him,
Yeah.
I'm super proud knife wife of his, but also the CEO mom to our family. So
Oh, you sure
lots,
are. Yeah.
lots of roles and responsibilities that I have.
Yes, yes, many hats. And when I thought of a medical affair, I was not thinking of science. I was thinking
Oh,
a
okay.
dirty, nasty thought of you being like you knew who was having affairs with whoever. When I read that, that's the first thing that came to mind, and I knew it wasn't true, but that's what I thought of.
That's so funny.
So I know.
But
Well, that's me.
scientific and medical affairs to geek out about science behind a future medication for patients. Yeah.
When you started working with Princeton, your part of the business is working the shows and
Mhm.
that. Tell me more about that. Tell me how that goes for you.
Yeah. So, ahead of time, it's booking, making sure we get the flights, getting there together. But I wanted to share the funny story.
Mhm.
Are you ready for the,
I'm ready.
yeah.
Bring it on.
Okay. So leading up to Blade West in 2022, you know, Princeton was working late nights at the shop to finish up the Orochi knife.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really common for him to come home with less than 30 minutes to spare to catch an Uber to meet me, and we'll go to catch it to go to the airport. And the night before our flight, he calls me to let me know that he still needs to work on the pocket clips for the Orochi, and that he'll join me in Salt Lake City a little after the show starts. So I was like, okay, are you trying to tell me that you want me to fly by myself? And he's like, yep, I'll meet you in Salt Lake City. I promise I'll be there, but I just have to finish up this
Oh,
knife.
great. Sure. And did
So
you have any knives with you at all?
no,
No knives.
so I flew there
Beautiful.
solo, spent the night in the hotel alone, and I made my way to Prince Customs table without the banner, without products, without the maker.
Oh my gosh.
And I sat there, and sure enough, precisely like Japanese time, an hour after the show starts, Princeton shows up
Wow.
with his knives, and he's ready for the show. But yeah, and we actually ended up having a very good one. He sold out of the knives, and
Not
but it's
surprising.
just funny that he, yeah, so funny. Sometimes
Yeah.
we oftentimes go together, but this one time where he's like, I really have to finish the pocket clips. I'll meet you there.
Wow.
Did you have an idea that he wasn't going to show up?
You know what? If he didn't get it to work right, maybe I'd have to find him a later flight, and he would have shown up the next day, and it'd be another night without him. But
Uh-oh.
Wow. So when people came by the table at first, did they look at you standing there with nothing? Like, who is this crazy woman standing behind the table?
but thankfully, you know, I've been to more shows with him, and they know who I am. So
Ah.
they're like, "Oh, what's Princeton working on? Is he still in the hotel fixing the knives?" I'm like, "He's on his way on a flight here."
Oh, yeah.
So,
It's very common. I can't tell you how many knife
yep.
makers I know that are on the airplane. Bob, you can tell a story. Was Ron Lake filing something or something?
Ron Lake and I used to travel together to shows, and we went to Europe once, and he had this ratty old green suitcase that he opened it up, and there was a plastic bag inside full of wet clothes.
Uh-huh.
And he said, I didn't have time to dry the clothes that I had just washed for the show. He said, so I'm going to hang them up around the room. And he hung up these pair of jeans and a couple of shirts, I don't know what else, that he had taken all the way to Europe wet in a plastic bag. And he had a little vise that he screwed onto the table near the bed and a couple of files. And he started filing away at a little gold bail that goes on the end of his knives. And that's how he finished his knives in the hotel room about an hour before the show started.
Yep.
With dripping
usually-
clothes all around him.
Now, to
Oh,
his
my
defense, he had just gotten divorced and he was single and didn't, had to do it all himself,
Yeah,
right?
but
But
hang
you
on.
were single, yeah.
Hang on, I had just gotten divorced also. I didn't travel to Europe with wet clothes.
Yes, well, yeah, you didn't. That's for sure. That's for sure. Anyway, now you have someone telling you what to wear. Oh boy.
Constantly.
Yeah. But so where can we find Prince knives? Tell your website and everything. Well, it'll be in the show notes as well, but I want you to tell us.
Yeah, so it's princecustoms.com. And so you can find it easily, and it talks about the history of the company. And also there's an online shop that we just launched last month. So he puts his latest drop for the knives on there.
Okay. And do you use a regular website? I mean, we've had tremendous trouble with being kicked off of places because we were selling weapons. Yeah, we have our own server and everything else.
Yeah.
So
Own server, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been working
Yep.
well so far for him.
Yep. Yeah, it's great actually. It's I didn't know. I mean, we were one of the first knife makers to do that because nobody knew this was coming down the road. So, and
Right.
Bob's knives. If you're buying a $9,000 knife, believe me, nobody's going to use it as a weapon. They're going to put it in a safe.
Right.
That's where they go. They're safe queens.
Yep.
So, I don't. Yeah, but people don't understand. So anyway, and they're craftsmen. I mean, what Bob does, Princeton uses a CNC machines, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and Bob does it all by hand.
Uh,
He's a dinosaur. So what are your next shows? Blade?
yep. Blade. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see you there. We'll be
So
there.
it's coming up in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, when I met Bob, I didn't think that I was ever going to work in a company with him. I never thought he'd have a company. He was just basically making knives and selling them. It was very simple. And he had a few knife contracts with, licensing deals with knife companies like
Yeah.
Spyderco. And you'll hear the former jacket of a company, we cannot mention their name.
Mhm.
But, and he had some patents and some other, he invented a clip that goes on your belt that carries, it could be a sheath, it could be for ammo, it could be for lots of things. And you didn't have to take
Mhm.
off your belt, or not you, a person didn't have to take off their belt. And that was nice. And I didn't have any idea at that time that I would be a knife wife, that I would be
Yeah.
in this industry. I thought, yeah, we'll go to shows, it'll be fun, we'll travel. No. You reeled me in, so here I am. But Bob was going to tell us a little story about a show in Texas, right?
Texas.
How's your weather there?
It's been raining all weekend, but finally today we got some sun. So
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited about that.
Okay.
Mother's
Well,
Day weekend, having the rain. Oh my gosh.
when you mentioned that it was raining in Texas before on when we were doing the pre-show, it reminded me of a story. We had a show in Dallas, and it was a beautiful little show in a hotel. It wasn't very many knife makers. It was probably about 40 or 50 knife makers in the room, beautifully laid out, and nobody came, mainly because they had the worst flooding probably in history in Dallas. And there were actually only 2 people that
I
showed up
believe
at the
it.
show. You probably know what we're talking about.
I
Yeah.
know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Texas
Yeah.
rain, yeah.
Yeah.
2
And
people
we're in
showed up.
hurricane season right now. It goes until like September, October.
I know.
This was probably in the September show, I think. I can't remember. But 2 people came. One lived like almost next door to the hotel. But the other fellow, Jim Richards, who became a really good friend of ours, he was in the Army. He was at Fort Hood. And he drove to the show from Fort Hood in an
Wow.
Army 4x4 ammo carrier.
He had the right
With
equipment.
4-wheel drive, and he plowed through the rain-soaked, flooded streets and highways, and he made it there. And I think there were only 2 knives sold at the show. One of them was mine. It was an M30 Battle Guard, and he bought it, and Jim Richards still has it. So
He does.
we're in touch with him. And
Oh.
Jim, if you're listening, it was great to meet you at that show.
I used to go to Dallas many, many years ago when I worked in advertising. I used to go to Dallas once a week for one of our clients. You brought back a story that I'll never forget. They had an ice storm. You have ice storms there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
I mean,
So,
occasionally, not often, but
yes. So, and I'm from Chicago originally, so I have no problem with snow, ice. Like in California, when it rains, people don't drive. I don't
yes.
understand that. I don't know. I come from a different driving school, I guess. So I was going from the clients, I was going to the airport, and I left plenty of time because I saw the weather was getting bad. And when I got in the cab, I said to the cab driver, "Do you know how to drive in ice? Are you used to driving in ice?" Because he looked like he might not have been in this country a long time. He said, "Oh, yes, I'm an expert." I'm like, "Okay." So we're driving, and he is sliding and fishtailing all over the place. I've got my heart in my
Wow.
throat. And finally, I could see the airport from where we were, and it was raining, but I had a small suitcase and a big suitcase. And I thought, this guy's going to kill me in this car. So I said, I'm done. Here, I threw some money on the front seat. I got out of the cab, and I walked
Yeah.
like a crazy lady on the side of the highway to Dallas Fort Worth Airport, DFW. And
Hard on you for doing that. That's dangerous. It can get dangerous, especially if the driver doesn't know what they're doing in
Oh,
that
yeah.
type of
Oh, yeah. And he
condition.
clearly did not know what he was doing. It was just so anyway. So that was quite an experience. And then I got stuck in that airport for 36 hours. So it was shut down. So
Worse.
yeah. So, but oh well, that's life.
I don't think the Texas Tourist Commission is going to enjoy some of these stories that we've been telling here.
Well, I have good friends who live in Austin, and well, when I like you, I have a strange thing. I have a weather app that I have, and I put your town in. And so in the morning when I wake up, I look at everyone I know and love's weather. I don't know why. It's a
Yeah.
strange thing. I know it's not a normal thing, but I do, and makes me sort of feel connected to them. And I'm like, oh,
They're
well,
connected with them.
yeah, and they're going to have a hard day. And if it's in the Midwest, they're my son's in Colorado. It could be 80 or it could be a blizzard, depending
Right.
on the hour it is. And
Mhm.
so I look at the weather, and I look at the weather in our other son's in Guatemala. That weather's pretty boring, except for when it rains. Bob, when does it start raining, and when's the rainy season in Guatemala?
15th of May, 3 o'clock.
And when does it end?
Well, it goes until the middle of August. And in August, the last 2 weeks in August, the first couple of weeks of September, they have what they call canicula. And that's a period of time when beautiful sunshine, no rain, and it's so green and all the flowers are blooming because we've had so much rain during the summertime. And it's a beautiful, beautiful time in Guatemala.
Okay. Have you been to Guatemala, Mimi?
I have not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
It's a pretty
Haven't
place.
had the chance to visit.
Yeah. Well, we can hook you up when you get there. We know a couple people. So anyway, I was going to ask you something about Princeton's knives. The Orochi, am I saying that right? Is that a Japanese name?
Yes.
And
So
what
it is based on the dragon claw. And yeah, so after we lived in Japan, he's been inspired by Japanese historical statues and also the artwork. So very first knife, Daruma, was inspired by
Daruma,
Japanese.
yeah.
Daruma is a goal maker. It's a charm. And he named it that because he's never made knives before. So he named it Daruma because that was his goal. What if I try to make knives? Will I be successful? And that charm, at the beginning of the year, you have a goal and you fill out the first eye. And by the end of the year, if you met your goal, you fill in the other eye. And so towards the end of the year, he was able to fill in the eye. He successfully made his first knife to debut at Blade, and he sold some too. So
Yeah.
ever since then, he's been making new designs. Almost every 6 months or so, he comes out with a new design.
Yeah. And he just won an award, right? What was the award
Yeah.
for? Which knife?
It's for the machine-assisted custom knife. Yes, so it's called the Mac, is
the
what they
Mac?
termed it.
That doesn't sound
Or
very
Orochi.
Japanese. Okay. Well, Bob named his knives like the M3, the M8, the nothing with a name, and most of them. And then the ATCF, which is his very famous knife that we've just released through Fox Knives in Italy. I call it the OG because people always want that knife. Okay, I don't know if that will happen to Princeton, but after all these years, they want this knife. And he said, "I've made so many." And so I call it the OG, the original gangster. He didn't know what OG meant at first. And so I call it that. So now Blade Magazine publishes the knife as a hot knife for 2024 as the OG. We seem to have lost the ATCF, and it's now the original gangster. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's you, Bob.
That's my OG knife.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you at Blade. And
I can't wait.
And in the show notes, we'll put your website. And is Princeton on Instagram?
He is. The handle is the same, Prince Customs.
Okay. Yes. And it's like there's a shape of his logo. It looks like the infinity symbol. Is that?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And if you turn it up, right side up, it looks like the number 8. And that's very auspicious in Chinese.
Yes. Yes.
Number 8.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my son was obsessed when he was younger, when he was like in first grade, about infinity. And he wanted to know what infinity -1 was. And his grandfather, who was a math professor, said there is no such thing. He said there has to be. When does it start? And he was obsessed. So he wrote the infinity symbol on everything in our house. So every time I see his logo, I think of that -1.
Yes.
So later, many years later, I think it was Stanford or some California school came out with what infinity minus one was actually. And I
Mhm.
sent him the link to that. I said, you were on to something. You were just in first grade and couldn't do the math.
They had a few questions. Exactly. It took all these years they found out.
Yep. Yep. So I still don't
That's
understand. It's way above my pay grade. Anyway, so, well, thank you for being on. And
likewise.
thank
Bob
you
and
for,
Suze, like, thanks for having me on the show. It's been a
yes.
pleasure to share
Yes.
our story and talk to you guys today.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And now I know we have to have Japanese food together. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
I'll be
Great.
looking for the spot.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you,
Have a good
Mimi.
one.
Good talking to you. We enjoyed
Likewise.
the visit.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please share this with a friend and subscribe where you listen to podcasts. Please support our efforts through Patreon at TheKnifeWife, and for all Terzawola goodness, go to terzawola.net. And remember, if you're not laughing, you're not living. Comments and questions can be made on Instagram at The Knife Wife Podcast or our Facebook group, The Knife Wife Podcast. And if you're a couple who work together and would like to be on our podcast, tell us about yourself with an email at eccentricsuze.com or terzawola.net.